Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Bill McDowell, who's the president of the McDowell Agency, and we'll be talking about guaranteed income. Bill, welcome to the program.
Great. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, doing really good. I love talking about topics where there's powerful words like income. People want to hear about income, and then even more powerful, tell me about guaranteed income. People love guarantees. So I'm excited to learn your perspectives on this. But before we dive in, give us a little bit of your story and background, and how did you get into the financial services industry?
Well, I've been in the financial industry for a while. I started off in the mortgage industry back in 2000. And if you were around back then, you probably remember the 2008 crash like everybody else
Yeah.
did. And that pretty much, I was in the business from 2000 to 2008. 2008 basically forced me out of the mortgage industry. And my parents have always been into fixed index annuities, those type of things. So that's the direction I went into. I followed into their footsteps.
Yeah, and back in those days of all of that economic crisis and all of that mess, I lived through it as well. So I remember it vividly because it was a painful time. People in that industry, like you and I were, and so you probably were like, let me kind of get a reset. And then when you were talking with your parents, now they're telling you about something that kind of made them feel comfortable and peaceful and confident. And so that's really neat that you dove into that. Let's just kind of first define, what is guaranteed income?
Guaranteed income is a tool that we use for when you're retiring. You've got to replace some income. They used to use pensions as that basic as far as replacing your income, but pensions have been outdated. Okay,
Yeah.
They've gone away basically in the past, I'd say 10 to 20 years. Now you do find one every once in a while that a person's got a pension, but 401ks have basically taken over pensions. So, and 401ks can be used in many different ways. And one of the ways we use them is guaranteed income. Okay. You set these up, and is what that does. It basically gives you a guaranteed income for the life of you and your spouse. Okay. So, if one of you passes away, the income goes to the other. Okay. So that's a tool that is very, very popular, and it takes the place of pensions basically.
So as an example, if you had a chunk of money and you put it into some other kind of financial product, you don't necessarily get, cash flow or income. It'll grow and you might get dividends, but then you have to initiate, give me X amount of dollars this month or this quarter or this year. Whereas in this kind of a product, when you put it in, it's kind of like a contract to go, when I give you this, you are going to give me this per month.
Correct. Of course, the more money you put in, the more income you'll get. And, there's different variables that go into it. And that's what you got someone like me to advise you on. Someone comes to me and they say, look, Bill, I've got this amount of money and I need to have access to it in such and such years. And I need it for me and my wife. So, that's where I come into play. Okay. So, I do a lot of back end work for you.
And interestingly enough, when you say, oh, I need this much money per month, there might have been a whole lot of back end work to come up with that much money, because it's almost like, okay, in retirement, what do you plan on doing? How much do you need? And, oh, you're going to travel, you're going to need this. So we have a dollar figure that you're going to need in retirement, but it looks like you're only going to have this much of a monthly income based on whatever, Social Security or your other investments. So here's a gap. So then when you say, I'm going to need this much money, then these are the kind of products that you would use to close that gap.
Correct. Everybody's got it. Everybody's situation is different. Okay. So,
Yep.
people come to me all the time and say, "Oh, well, my neighbor told me this. My ex or best friend told me this." You can't really listen to those people because everybody's situation is different. Right? I mean,
Yep.
one person needs such and such income because they live a different lifestyle and your best friend does. So everybody's situation is different, and not everybody's financial goals are the same. So, and like you said, when you retire, you're taking away, your paycheck, and Social Security is not going to be there to basically. You're not going to be able to live off Social Security for the rest of your life. It just, it's not going to be enough.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point. And again, there is never ever one solution, one cookie cutter template that works for everybody, because then you just be a robot. You'd be an AI bot going, okay, next. So you've got to look at everyone's needs differently. And there might be people that go, oh, I'm gonna only travel twice a year. Well, that could turn into twice a quarter, because now you have a lot more time on your hands because you're not working at all or as much. So I think that part of your job almost becomes like a life coach to go, ooh, now let's really articulate this out and figure out, being able to have more time on your hands. Don't you think you're gonna whatever? Oh, you're gonna take up this hobby. You always wanted to learn how to fly. Well, that's gonna take some money. So I think that's really powerful to make sure that your clients are making the right decisions based on their circumstances.
Correct. Correct. Like you said, everybody wants to take a vacation. You say one person might want to travel twice a year. That might turn into, depending on what happens. And there are things that come up. I mean, we have emergencies that come up, and nobody has a crystal ball. I mean, they
Yep.
can tell you they do, but they don't. So,
Yep.
things come up in everybody's life and you got to adjust. But my job is to make sure that, they got a guaranteed income that's going to stay there for them and their spouses rest of their life. Because I mean,
Yeah.
the last thing people want to do is to retire, and all of a sudden, 10 or 15 years into their retirement, they say, "Oh, we're going to run out of money before we, pass on." They don't want to go back to work. I mean, nobody wants to go back to work once they retire.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell folks. I say, look, I said, you need to have this money. It needs to last you until, your days on this earth are gone.
Well,
So,
that's a really good point too, because you read the headlines, and I know that I've talked to other financial professionals that have said back in the whatever 60s or 70s, they would do the tables to calculate your retirement income to whatever the age is. Well, nowadays we're taking better care of yourself, healthcare is better, eating better, exercising better, and maybe your age now you have to calculate for is 10 or 15 years longer than it used to be. So, that whole longevity is a good thing because you're living longer, but then it's something to be taking into consideration to make sure you've got enough money to last to that age.
correct. I mean, they're making 100-year-old birthday cards for a reason. I mean, if they're
Right.
if they're selling them, then there's people living to 100. And I mean, I've got quite a few clients of mine that are actually over 100. I mean, I had just off the top of my head, I had two sisters. They were twins, and they lived together for the past 40 years, and they were 104.
Wow.
One of them passed away. I believe it was in early spring, and then like a couple months later, the other one had passed away. It was kind of like the lovebird type thing,
Yeah.
But they had lived together for the past 40 years of their life, and they were 104. So,
Yeah. So you better make sure you've got that money dialed in. You mentioned fixed index annuities, and I don't want to get into the weeds of how all of that works, but I want to focus in on the word fixed, because when we hear the word guaranteed and income, I also like to hear fixed, because people don't like to open up their mail and see their portfolio like taking a big hit because the stock market plunged. So talk a little bit about kind of that fixed aspect, and then what are some other sources of guaranteed income that you advise your clients to consider?
well, there's a couple different kinds of annuities. You got fixed annuities, fixed index annuities, and you have variable annuities. everybody in the world knows what the difference between variable and fixed is. Okay.
Yeah.
Variable is not what I specialize in. I don't want to put anybody's money at risk and have them in a product that is variable when they're retiring. I mean, you
Hmm.
don't want to, like you said, you don't want to open your statement one day and see that the stock market took a dive and your money has gone down 20%. Okay. So with the fixed and fixed index annuities with the guaranteed income on them, now the good thing about the guaranteed income on them is that even if just say you've got, just for round numbers, just say you've got $500,000 that is set up on an income for you, okay, and just say you live to 100 years old, okay, and you started taking that income at age 65, more than likely that account's going to be zeroed out. There's not going to be anything left in that account. Okay.
Yeah.
The good thing about the guaranteed income is that as long as you or your spouse are living, that product is going to keep paying an income to you or your spouse. Now, when you both pass away, that ends. Okay. But as long as one of you are still alive, and it doesn't matter if that account has any money in it or not, it's still going to pay out.
Yeah,
So
because isn't it because that annuity is a contract? It's like an
yeah,
insurance contract.
correct. It's a contract. And of course, I mean, if something happens prematurely and you pass away before the money's gone out of that contract, the money doesn't go to the insurance company. The money goes on to your beneficiaries. So,
Yeah.
it's not, you're going to use, the money's going to get used one way or the other. You're either going to use it for income or you're going to pass it on to your beneficiaries. And
Yeah.
most people, they want to have a guaranteed income. And if you don't have one of these guaranteed income products in place, and you're not going to have that guaranteed coming in. So, you're going to be if you try to do it yourself, you're going to kind of be guessing, on what the market's doing, that kind of, it's something that if you're not educated and prepared to do, it's not going to work in your favor.
And again, another key word you just said, prepared. And volatility, we know what that is. If you don't have, if you have your money in the market and the market goes up, down, or all around, then that volatility is taking a chunk out of your retirement portfolio. And you can weather that storm if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. But when you start getting into the later years, when you need that money for retirement in a very short time, or you're in retirement, you can't take, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you can't take any volatility at all. You just need to have it in safe, secure, guaranteed, like what you're talking about.
Correct. And here's what I find with most people that I work with. Most people, everybody I work with are retired or getting ready to retire. Okay.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to make money. Of course, everybody wants to make money on their investments. But when it boils down to it, when I'm talking to my folks or clients or, people that are wanting to get educated, it comes down to it. They really tell me that their most important thing is to make sure that they don't lose anything of what they've worked so hard for their whole life to save.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course they want to make some money, but when it boils down to it, we get through all uh, get through everything. The bottom line is they just want to make sure they don't lose anything that they worked so hard for. So
That
that is
you gave that observation from personal experience with clients, but I'll tell you, I've heard research that has said the same exact thing, that people are motivated way more not to lose $100 versus the prospect of winning or getting $100. So that's all fine and good. I might be able to earn $100, but don't you dare take my $100. So I think you're right on the money there. When you think about guaranteed income and planning for retirement, what percentage of your client's portfolio are you recommending them put into guaranteed income type vehicles?
Well, I mean, everybody's got a different perspective, but I mean,
Yeah.
most 60 to 70% is what I suggest that most people put into some type of a something that they can't lose any money in.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, But my suggestion is to put, somewhere between 60 and 70% of their money into a safe place to where, they can go to sleep at night and not worry about, if the market, if they wake up tomorrow morning and, another '08 crash hit and their money's gone
Yeah.
down 40%. That's the last thing you want to be worrying about
Yes.
when you need that,
Yeah.
when you need that money to live on, to
Yeah.
retire on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. And again, everybody's different, and 60 to 70% for one might be 70 or 80 or another. But the point is, make sure that your money is protected. That's the big thing. And makes me kind of think this too, and we'll kind of wrap up with this thought, Bill. Can you share any examples of when you've worked with clients, without giving details or names, but when you had a client that maybe came to you and was like dealing with volatility, and then you put them into these kind of programs, and then what was their results and their response to feeling now a whole lot more protected with having that guaranteed income?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I've got a client of mine. I mean, he's fairly recent. He's not retired yet. He's wanting to retire in a year, and he never thought he was going to be able to retire, because he
Wow.
was always, he knows he knows how much he makes now, and he was always under the impression he needs to have 75% of what he makes now to live on in retirement, which is, that's fairly accurate. Everybody, like I said, everybody's different. But this gentleman had inherited some money, and is what I did for him. I said, okay, well, let's take a chunk of this, your retirement, your 401k, put it into an income annuity for you. And the longer you wait on obtaining that income, the more income you get. Okay, so if you access that income on year one, it's not going to be as much as if you access the money
Yeah.
on year 5. So
Yeah, because
he
it's
just
growing.
inherited.
The rate of return is growing every year. So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you can put it off using it, then let that interest compound.
correct. So it's what I did for him. I said, look, you've got money you've inherited. You've got to use that money with the new laws that have just come out. You've got to You've got to use that money you inherited in the next 10 years. So if you want to retire, just say in a year from now, which that's what we were planning on for him. He said, okay, if I retire in a year, I've got such and such money. I can live off of the money that I inherited for 5 years, maybe even 6, and that'll give me enough money that'll be in that income annuity that will kick in on that 5th or 6th year when I need to activate that income,
Hmm.
and that'll take me and my wife through the rest of our life.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, and it worked out exact. I mean, and he was one of the ones that he said he never thought he could retire. He thought he was going to have to work the rest of his life, because he didn't know that these guaranteed income products were out there, and he just, he didn't have anybody to advise him, and he didn't know is what it boils down to. So,
What a gift that is, to be able to unveil that to a client and have that relief in their mind to go, wait a minute. You mean I don't need to be 87 years old working at Walmart greeting people to put food on the table? You can show me how I can actually retire. So that's a huge opportunity. I think that's so great, Bill. Well, talking about guaranteed income and fixed rate of return and all of these things is just so critical. If someone is interested in learning a little bit more and reaching out and connecting with you and maybe seeing your perspectives on what they can do, what's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you?
okay, my website is www.mcdowell-agency.com, or they can call me at 336-987-2933, or email me at mcdowellmanage@gmail.com. And that's spelled
Excellent.
McDowell is how you spell my last name. Okay.
Excellent. Bill, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.